So, good evening and a very warm welcome to you all from the Buddhist Society, wherever you're logging in from. It's early evening here in London, UK, and this is the Buddhist Society's basic meditation class. So, it's open to all, but especially if you're new to practice or if you're returning after a gap. And that's precisely what we'll do. We'll do some basic meditation together, and I'll provide some simple guided instructions, and then I'll talk for a little bit in the middle of the session, and we'll do a little bit more meditation together. And then at the end, we'll have some questions and hopefully some answers, although that bit is always a bit uncertain. So just as people are continuing to log on, for those of you who are already here, just get into a really comfortable sitting position, as we normally do. By that I mean a position you can hold with ease without getting into too much discomfort in your body for about half an hour or so. And if you're used to sitting, you'll know what works for you. If you're fairly new to sitting, please feel free to experiment and just try out what posture works for you best. And I always say to people, please take account of your bodily situation. Many of us have frailties and weaknesses in our body, and please make allowances for that as you adopt a comfortable sitting position. So although the usual instructions about sitting are to sit upright, do be aware that your body might not be particularly suited to sitting bolt upright. And if you need to have the support of a chair or a cushion behind you, please feel free to do that. So just take a few minutes and just really get comfortable. And, learn to assess what your body is capable of. Yes, it's good to sit upright, but if you need support and the back of a chair to lean slightly into, that's absolutely fine. But if you can sit unsupported, that's fine too. And we're going to start with a grounding practice. Many of us spend much of our time in our heads thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let's just begin. Once you've adopted a reasonably upright sitting position, let's just begin by dropping our attention downwards. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the Buddhist Society, and we're adopting a comfortable sitting position and beginning by dropping our attention downwards. Usually the points of contact with the floor are a good place to start. So this is a grounding practice. It helps us to ground our energy. Welcome if you're just joining us, if you're logging on from afar. A very warm welcome to you. And we're just adopting a reasonably upright sitting position, taking full account of the frailties of our body, the situation we find our body in today. So if you need support, that's fine. Just drop your attention downwards. So if you're sitting on a chair or a settee, just see if you can establish a contact with the floor in the soles of your feet. If you're sitting cross-legged on the floor, it would be your ankles and your shins, perhaps your knees. And really see if you can get a sense of the contact. And notice what else goes on when you move your attention downwards. So you might be thinking about the contact, You might be visualizing it, and that's absolutely fine, but just notice that and see if you can just shift your attention into that direct experience of the contact with the floor. And good evening if you're just joining us. We're just sitting in a reasonably upright sitting position, and we're dropping our attention downwards to the points of contact with the floor, the ground that supports us. So this is a grounding practice. And it's part of a body scan, so we're just establishing that contact. And the encouragement, the invitation is to notice quite closely where your attention actually goes. The other thing we can do here is allow gravity to take our attention down. We don't have to try too hard, just allow it to fall. And we just notice. So the encouragement here is just to notice. Notice the contact, the direct experience of the sensation of touch of your body with the floor. And we notice what else is going on as well as we do this. Whatever else you've been doing this afternoon and this evening, you have full permission just to park it for the time being. Just relax into this practice. You've chosen to give yourself this time, and you can just relax and soften your body. And there's nothing you have to do that's too difficult. You don't have to try hard. Just notice. That's the only encouragement. And having felt the contact with the floor, I now encourage you to move your attention, say, up to your sitting bones on the chair or the cushion. And just get, in the same way, just get a sense of the direct experience of sitting, contact with the chair or the cushion or the settee or whatever it is you're sitting on. How does that actually feel? Just notice that. And again, the invitation is to closely notice what else goes on. Are you visualizing yourself sitting? Are you thinking about yourself sitting? And there's the direct experience of the sensation of sitting. And it may be a mixture of all three of those. It's not that one is right and the other's wrong. The invitation, the encouragement, is just to notice. And then I invite you to move your attention to your back and your spine in particular. And again, in the same way, just explore the sensations in that area. If you're sitting on a chair and you're using the back of the chair as a light support, just notice the contact with the chair or the back of the settee. If you're sitting unsupported, how does that feel? So the invitation is just to notice. And if lots of thoughts about different things are coming in, drifting your attention, that's absolutely fine. You haven't made a mistake. Just notice. And then return your attention to the back, the spine in particular. And as you were working with the back, see if you can get a sense of being reasonably upright and aligned with your head and your neck, so that everything's in a reasonably upright column. And as I said right at the beginning, and some of you may have missed it if you were not here right at the beginning, but do please make allowances for how your body is. Some of us do need the support of a chair, and we may not be able to sit completely upright, and that's absolutely fine. Just find a reasonably comfortable position. And you can meditate lying down. The danger is that you fall asleep. So as upright as you can make it, but do feel supported. And again, just exploring the sensations in your back. See if you can have a sense of being upright and aligned. And then just noticing. And then drift your attention upwards again into your neck and your shoulder area. And see if you can align your head and your neck with your spine so that everything's reasonably upright. Just having a sense of being aligned. And again, just explore that area. What are the sensations? Is there any tension? And just notice where your attention actually goes. And if the attention wanders and drifts, if thoughts and distractions come in, just notice those. It's absolutely fine. You haven't made a mistake. Just see if you can notice them, and then just return your attention to that area. And then moving the attention upwards again into the head area, taking in the face at the front, the ears at the side, back of the neck, the back of the head, the crown of the head. And just seeing if you can have a sense of the whole of your physical head without getting into the thoughts that are inside it. So just noticing how it feels. And again, have a sense of it being nicely balanced at the top of your spine and aligned with your spine so that everything's in a reasonably upright column. And then move your attention to the crown of your head and just lengthen a fraction from there upwards towards the sky so that everything's pulled reasonably upright. And just for a moment, just notice the sensations here at the top of your physical body. What's going on there? What does that feel like? And then from the crown of your head, we've worked our way right up the body. Now we're going to drop down again. We're going to sweep our attention downwards. So from the crown of our head, just dropping the attention downwards through the head, taking in the face at the front, the back of the head, the sides, just feeling and exploring what's going on there. Physically, what are the sensations? And then from the head, dropping down through the neck, the back of the neck, the front of the neck, the throat area, downwards towards the shoulders, the collarbone, the right and left shoulders, Just exploring the sensations down as we drop down through the body. And then from the shoulder area, down each arm, down the upper arm, the lower arm, on the right and the left, down to the hands. And if you haven't already done so, find a neutral position for your hands, either in your lap or on your thighs, upturned or downturned. Just a position where you don't have to think about what to do with them. Just feel them. What are the sensations in them? And then returning the attention to the torso, dropping down through the chest, the front of the chest, the back, the upper back, down to the middle area of your body around the solar plexus and the mid back area. Just exploring, feeling, sensing. You might notice the movement of the breath in this area. And dropping down again into the stomach area at the front, the lower back, the hips, the pelvis, the sitting bones, just allowing gravity to take your attention back down through your body. Feel your sitting bones again on the chair. And then taking in your upper legs, the thighs, the quadriceps at the front, the hamstrings at the back, perhaps touching the chair or the settee. Down to your knees. Just feeling the knees. And dropping down through the lower leg, the calves at the back, the shins at the front. Just gently descending all the way down the lower leg until you come to the soles of your feet or your ankles and shins, the contact with the floor where you started. So we've worked up through the body and we've swept down through the body. Just exploring the sensations and noticing what's going on in our minds. And now bring your attention back to your mouth, the inside of your mouth, and just taste whatever there is to taste. Maybe the aftertaste of some tea or coffee you had earlier, or maybe nothing. What are you tasting right now? What's the taste of nothing? And now I invite you to move your attention to your nose. Just smell whatever there is to smell in the room you're in. It may be some flowers you have, or some incense, or it may be nothing. Maybe cooking smells. What's the smell entering your nostrils with the breath right now? And if it's nothing, what's that like? And now I invite you to move your attention to your eyes. If you've got closed eyes, what are you seeing right now through your eyelids? There will be some light entering, unless your room is completely darkened. If you've got a half-opened eye position, which is absolutely fine, what's the light that you're receiving? How is it for you? Just noticing it. So through your closed eyelids or your half-opened eyelids, just noticing the light coming to you. Noticing if you're getting involved in thoughts about the light. And the encouragement here is just to receive whatever is coming to you without getting entangled in it. And then I invite you to move your attention to your ears and just listen for the sounds coming to you. See if you can listen and just receive, and listen in a way where you don't get entangled with the sounds coming to you. So just noticing the sounds. So please feel free to stretch and move and take a sip of water or tea. And well done for those of you that sat right the way through. That was quite a long sit for an introduction. Just to go over a little bit of what we did there, because there are a number of ways you can do this, but one of the preliminary practices in meditation is to scan the body, just the senses. And we did that in a number of ways there. We started by dropping our attention downwards. This is something that I particularly do in my practice. I spend a lot of time thinking, and I'm very much a person that lives in my head. And I find one of the ways to kind of balance this is that when I begin meditation, it's simply just to drop my attention down and get a contact with the ground, the soles of my feet, or if I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, my ankles and my shins. And I call that a grounding practice, and it's part of a body scan. But for me, it's really the basic place to start. So that's one way of starting. And then what we did after that is we worked our way upwards through the body, establishing our posture as we went. We worked with the sitting bones, the back, the head. I mentioned being aligned so that we have a sense of sitting in a centered, upright way. And that's important for meditation. And all of the time, I wanted to balance that with people recognizing how their bodies are, because many of us, we don't have ease in our bodies. Some of us, as we get older, we find that we have frailties and we can't sit as upright as we used to. And that's absolutely okay to take all of that into account. The main thing is to be comfortable. Upright if you can, but comfortable is the most important thing. And then when we got upwards, right to the top of the body, the head, the neck, we then swept our attention back down through the body. And one of the things I like to encourage here is just a sense of not trying. Just, if you think of gravity, how you don't actually have to try, you're under the influence of gravity all the time. So we can apply this to our attention. We just let gravity take it down again. So we've worked our way up, and now we can just drop everything and just let it sweep down. And all we have to do is just notice. So that downward movement, again, we can learn something from this about just sort of letting go, relaxing our whole system, not trying too much. And with the body scan, we don't have to really tightly focus on any one part of the body. That's not the point. The point is just to get a general sense, a sense of ease and relaxation. So we've worked our way up the body, we've swept down the body, and then the last little bit of that practice that I threw in right at the end is some work with some of the other senses. So primarily the body scan works with the sense of touch, sensation, the sensation of touch. But we have other senses, and I wanted to introduce that into our practice as well. It's quite useful sometimes just to notice what's going on with our other senses, the sense of taste. It's not something we normally think of using very much in meditation, but it's there, it's part of our body, it's part of our whole system, it's one of the sense doors, and we can notice what's going on. And it's particularly useful just to notice when there's nothing. Say you've got no taste in your mouth at all. What's this neutral? What's that like? And the same with smell. When you may be sitting in a room with incense or some lovely flowers or something like that, or some beautiful cooking smells. And you may be sitting in a room where it's absolutely neutral. There's nothing to smell whatsoever. So again, what's that like? Just noticing what your mind does when there's not very much to get hold of. And that's a really useful practice. And then with the eyes, the sense of sight. Now, if we're all lucky enough to have sight, or I think we are. I mean, I do have one group where I have a blind person, and that's a different area to work with. But if you have sight through closed eyelids, you may have a sense of the light coming through it. I mean, I've got lights on in my room. I'm sure many of you have. Some of you may be sitting in relative darkness. And again, what's that like? Just to have nothing coming through your eyelids. So we can work with the sense of sight as well. What are we receiving? And the other thing to notice is what do these things set off in our minds? When we have a visual image, what are the thoughts that go with it? We can start to notice what's going on. So these are other ways of working with the body, with these other senses. And of course, the last one that we used was hearing. And this is a very useful practice in meditation. It's just simply to sit there and listen. Now, I live in a city, I live in London, and I have a fairly busy road nearby, and I can almost always hear the sound of traffic. In fact, at one point during that practice, I muted my sound because there was a siren of an emergency vehicle going past, and I didn't want it to feed through in my microphone to you and disturb you. So I muted myself just until the siren had gone past. But there's all sorts of things going on in a city, but maybe you're in a very quiet space. What's that like? And the practice here with all of these senses, but particularly with sound, is to see if you can just be in receptive mode, just receiving what's coming to you. You don't have to go out and get involved in a fight with it, like wishing that they would turn the music off or quieten down. You don't have to get into a battle. You can just simply receive and hear. And if it's nothing, how is that as well? So there are a number of ways of working with the body and its senses. And I would commend to you sometimes to work with senses other than touch. And sound's a particularly useful one. So that was really the body scan plus use of the other senses. What I wanted to talk to you about this evening, some of you may have noticed the title I gave this particular session, was weaving joy into our practice. Now, many of you will know that a lot of Buddhism is there's a lot of focus on dukkha, on unsatisfactoriness or pain and suffering, and that's certainly true. But the flip side to that is that we all have a capacity to experience joy in our lives, and just working with the senses actually gives us a way in. I mean, the fact that we have these senses can be, if we allow it to be, a source of gladness and joy for us. Just the sheer fact that we have sight, or we have hearing, or we have the capacity to taste and smell. These senses we take for granted. And actually, if we have them, and as I said, not everyone in the groups I teach has all of them, but if we do have them, they can be a source of gladness if we allow them to be. We often think of compassion as being evoked or brought forth by witnessing suffering, and that is certainly true. But there is also an energy within compassion related to a deep connection that's born from rejoicing. Someone once asked a Buddhist monk, a meditation master, why he meditated, and the questioner was expecting a really, lofty, long-winded, very sophisticated discourse as a reply. And the meditation master sat there for a bit and he thought about it and he said, well, I meditate to notice the small purple flowers by the roadside. And he didn't give a long-winded discourse. And it's the same with us. We can notice the spring blossom. And when we notice, we can come to wish for others to notice and to take delight also. It's sort of natural, isn't it, to want to share enjoyment. And this is very far removed from pity. It's the compassionate wish to share delight. So joyful compassion might arise from our delight at certain mind states after, for instance, practicing metta, loving kindness. We may witness our minds and our hearts opening up. We may feel able to let go instead of clinging in certain situations. Where we would previously have grasped at something, we may be able to just simply release it and let it go. Something precious we wanted, or something we despaired at ever getting, we may simply be able to just let that go. And we can take delight at certain mind states. And in our practice, we are encouraged to actively rejoice in these realizations and openings. And crucially, this type of gladness, this type of joy, is not characterized by attachment, for we also can have the insight that these things too will change. So rather, it's characterized by gladness for our own capacity to be caring, loving, open, to see really the true nature of things, to connect. And when we recognize that all beings have this ability, have this capacity, even if many find it obscured for all sorts of reasons, often to do with suffering and pain. But this capacity, this joyful compassion, awakens in us the aspiration for others to be able to be caring, open, and connected. An important thing to remember here is that this compassionate wish is not associated with a self-righteous perspective or a need to proselytize. It just arises naturally from an understanding of how other people want to be happy, and yet how few people truly are happy. And it just naturally arises from that. So it's this energy of joyful compassion, and when it grows in us, when we recognize how the energy of love is available all around us, then we can share that. It's not something that is in scarce supply, it's abundant. So what I'm encouraging here is that this noticing of compassion that arises from the joy that comes through us as an affirmation that everyone can live a meaningful and fulfilled life is a possibility. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese meditation master who passed away just over a year ago, he taught that if we create a space, the internal space, that allows us to see things as they are, then we are not totally dazed by suffering. We can see that there is both happiness and unsatisfactoriness in the world. As he puts it, there's both sukha and dukkha. Those are the Pali words for happiness and for suffering, sukha and dukkha. And they're both there in our world, if we can notice it. And he taught very clearly that the conditions of happiness are all around us right now and within us. And crucially, he taught that the breath is happening right now in this moment, and whatever else we have going on or whatever else we have witnessed in our lives, we have the capacity to notice this breath. And we can, if we allow it to be, we can allow this to be a source of gladness, a source of joy. And as we notice our minds drift and wander, we can also notice our capacity to begin again. So, as we're now going to go on to work with the breath, one of the things that I will be encouraging you to do is to notice when your mind has drifted and to begin again. And that too can be a source of gladness, a source of joy. We have this capacity within us all the time to begin again. And it's important to notice here that there is no should about this. Thich Nhat Hanh is not saying you should be glad, you should be joyful or compassionate or whatever. It's very clear what he's saying. He's saying, look closely. Allow the flow of the breath to open your inner space and then see what is there. He's encouraging us to notice. And then, as he says, happiness is available, just please help yourself. There is no should about this. It's an encouragement, it's an invitation. So I think with those sort of considerations, especially from Thich Nhat Hanh, in mind, let's commence our next practice, which will be working with the breath. So I invite you now again to sit in a reasonably upright position, as you were doing. And again, my encouragement is to be comfortable. Make allowances for how your body is. Take full account of the frailties that you find you're living with. Be supported if you need to be. And be as reasonably upright as you can. And as we began some 50 minutes ago, just begin by dropping your attention downwards. Down into the soles of your feet or your ankles and your shins. And just establish that sense of contact with the ground. And then just get a sense of your sitting bones on the chair or the cushion. Again, just noticing the touch, the sensation of sitting. And then just moving up to your back and your spine in particular, just have a sense of being reasonably upright and aligned. And then moving up to your head and your crown, just get a sense of being upright, centered, balanced. And then just take in the whole of your physical body, from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, including your back and your sitting bones. And just feel the clothes on your skin surface, and the air on your hands and your face. Just take it all in. Just get a real sense of the physical boundaries of your body. And now, as you sit here quiet and settled, just see if you can pick up the movement caused by the breath. So, wherever it's easiest for you to connect, either in the abdomen or the chest area or at the rim of the nostrils, see if you can just locate the sensation of the movement caused by the breath. So keeping the breath absolutely normal, natural, not altering it in any way. Just see if you can locate that sensation. So just gently noticing the arising of the in-breath and calmly noticing the fall with the out-breath. So it's important here to keep the quality of attention light and easy. We're not grasping after the breath, we're not tightly concentrating or focusing. We're just gently noticing. So keeping the quality of attention light and easy. And if thoughts drift you away, you haven't made a mistake. This is absolutely natural and normal. We just notice that. And gently, with compassion and kindness, just moving our attention back to the sensation of the breath. So please feel free to stretch and move and adjust your posture. And well done, everyone, for another fairly substantial sit. Please do get comfortable again. Yeah, and take a few moments just to come back to. And as Ajahn Subhaddo, who takes this class from time to time, always says, don't stop noticing, don't stop meditating just because you've come out of a formal sit. Just notice how you are. And, how is your mind right now? So between now and 8 o'clock, if anyone wants to put a question in the chat, please feel free to do so. And I will do my best to answer. I don't have all the answers, but I'll have a go. And if I don't manage to answer it, I can always hand over the question to next week to Colin, who will be taking the class next week. But please feel free to either put your hand up and unmute or put something in the chat. Whilst you're all thinking of questions, just to say a few things about that particular practice, working with the breath. One of the things that I find is always worth saying to a group like this, I know many of you are quite experienced meditators, but there'll be some people here that are not. It really isn't a question of being all the time locked on to the breath with your attention. That isn't the point. The point is that you're using the attention as a sort of neutral backdrop. It's a bit like a blank screen, against which you can see the movements of the mind. So if anyone has got, has sort of like mistaken the invitations, the instructions, and are trying to sort of like really concentrate on the breath, that's not what this practice is about. There is a place for concentration in meditation, but in these preliminary basic meditation exercises, this is not the place. So it really is about having a very light quality of attention. So gentle, easy, and above all, compassionate and kind. Kind to yourself, compassionate to yourself, full of the understanding the nature of the mind is to wander, it's to think, it's to drift, it's to react, it's to get involved in sort of thought streams. That's the nature of what we're working with. It's quite normal and natural. And the breath is like a blank screen, like this wall behind me. It's just against which you can see all the movements of the mind, and you can start to notice those movements. And that's all. That really is all that the practice is about. And if you can just row back from judging yourself when you find yourself off on a thought stream, when you've drifted from the breath, that's really a useful step in practice. And above all, keep it really compassionate and kind. And as I was saying earlier in what I was trying to get across to you in the midst of this session, was just the capacity to notice is itself can be a source of gladness. Well, we've got these wonderful minds that are always thinking and full of activity and life, and this is life energy. But we can use our capacity to notice what's going on in the mind. So we're using the mind to actually witness the mind. And really, that's an amazing thing to be able to do. That's a source in itself of gladness and joy. So if you sat through that particular sit just once, that can be a source of joy if you allow it to be. What else can I say? Oh, yes. There's another thing I wanted to mention to you. I had a question in a class a couple of weeks ago where someone was sitting with quite a lot of discomfort. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor and experiencing quite a lot of discomfort, pain in her knees and in her thighs, just from not being used to sitting on a cushion on the floor. And my encouragement to her was to stretch. She knew she had practiced yoga. She knew a lot of the stretching movements that you do in yoga. And sometimes if you feel yourself tight in the body, you can ease that by encouraging greater flexibility, greater length in your muscles by stretching. Now, I'm not going to go into a stretching routine here in this particular class, but the point is that it's the flexibility in the body that allows you to sit cross-legged on the floor. In the mind, it's also the flexibility that allows you to sit. It's exactly the same. It's this, when I'm talking about ease and a light attention, I'm really talking about flexibility. So I don't have there is a particular stretch in yoga for the quadriceps. There's a particular stretch for the adductors. These are muscle groups in the upper leg that are very connected to your capacity to sit cross-legged on the floor. So too with the mind, there are particular exercises that are really good for encouraging flexibility. And one of them is the body scan. Just working with the body scan, encouraging yourself just to notice whatever's going on, whatever it is, however your body is, however your mind is, as you sit, just noticing that without getting into a big shouldn't, judgment orientated stream of thoughts about it. That encourages flexibility in the mind. And this is really the same sort of practice. So yoga for the mind, really. Yeah. So working with the breath in this way, not getting too fixated on being closely locked onto the breath all the time. Okay, Jeff, I see you've got a hand raised. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Richard. How are you? Hi, everybody. So you brought up a good point there. I was in the military and I've got arthritis riddled from kind of head to toe. So it's okay to kind of do our meditation sitting or even sometimes lying. You don't have to always be in that seated position, because with my knees and ankles, I just can't. We talked about discomfort. I have tried it. I've tried the meditation to kind of alleviate the pain and everything. And though I can do that in most circumstances, just the sitting with my back, which I broke when I was really younger, I can't sit in these positions.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a really great point. I'm so glad you raised that. Yeah, as I said right at the beginning of this session, and I will always say at the beginning of the sessions that I run, is that please do get comfortable and make allowances for the state of your body. If you've had trauma to your body in the past, and that's impacting on you, on your capacity now, absolutely, that's quite right, Jeff. You've got to be comfortable. There is no point to my mind, in engaging in these practices if you're starting and you're uncomfortable right from the word go. So yeah, it's absolutely okay to meditate lying down if you can manage to stay awake. It's absolutely okay to be supported by a chair that gives you that support, or cushions if you need that. I don't know any meditation teacher, certainly in the traditions that I've worked in, that would say anything different. So yeah, absolutely great point. There, the basic message here is that these practices, certainly in the Buddhist tradition, these are designed to be the way out of dukkha, not to create more. And if you're creating discomfort in your sitting, then that's dukkha to start with. I don't hold with any sort of method that says you've just got to, push your way through it and tough it out. No, absolutely not. Give your body what it needs. Give it the support you need. I mean, it's like giving your mind the support it needs. We need to be gentle, compassionate, kind, and caring for other people, and so too with ourselves. And we start with our meditation practice. So thank you very much for that, Jeff. That was it's a great comment, and it reminds me as well how important it is as a meditation facilitator to mention this aspect of getting comfortable to begin with. It really is important. I mean, I do it now as a matter of course, but sometimes I pay insufficient attention to it. And there are
Great.
many
Thank you, Richard.
people that can't. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. Was there anyone else there? Okay. Yeah. I think to sort of build on that, it really is. If any practice isn't working for you, then I would say, don't do it. Give it a good go, but don't do it if it's not working. All these things are really for you to sort of. They're offerings really for you to sort of take and consider and try out. And if it doesn't actually connect with you, then let it go. Find something that does. So I don't have an attachment to any practice that doesn't work for someone. Yeah, I was thinking about. Please feel free to ask any questions in the chat, or if you want to put your hand up and unmute, that's fine. So someone got a hand up? I can't quite see. Oh yes, Al, please go ahead.
Yeah, Richard, thanks for the session. Could you talk a little more about the joy that you were speaking of? Just explore that slightly further, because it's really the first time that aspect has been raised for me, and I'd like to understand it slightly more.
Okay, thanks, Al. Yeah, that's certainly, yeah. I think that this is a teaching directly from Thich Nhat Hanh, who I'm sure many of you have heard of, and he was the Vietnamese teacher who ended up living in France in the Dordogne and established a centre there called Plum Village. But one of the things that he emphasised in his teachings was that practice really in the Buddhist tradition has been so fixated on dukkha, unsatisfactoriness and suffering. And he was pointing to actually the flip side of that is happiness. And we can notice that in, say, that exploration of the senses that we did about an hour ago, we can notice that actually I've got the sense of taste, I've got the sense of smell, I've got the sense of sight, I can hear. And this, if we allow it to be, can be a source of joy. I mean, that's amazing. Just think of that whole range of experiences that we take for granted. We don't even think about it because for so many of us, it's just every day. And as I said, I have had some people come to sessions I've run that don't have one of those senses and they don't take it for granted. But for many of us that do, and we've all got life and breath, actually this can be, if we allow it to be, a source of joy. I mean, whatever else is going on in our lives, whatever we've witnessed in the past, right now, in this moment, I've got this breath. And if I allow myself to connect fully with the actual magnificence of that experience, that can be a source of gladness and joy. It's difficult to persuade anyone of this. It's something that one can point to, and then people have to experience for themselves. But again, one of the things I would emphasize is the teaching here, and Thich Nhat Hanh was not saying you should feel this, you should feel glad, you should be grateful. Not at all. He was saying, just look, experience it fully. And if you allow yourself, you can also experience within that this sense of gladness and appreciation. Okay, so I've got
That's very helpful.
people.
Thank you.
Okay, Andy, I've seen you with a hand raised.
Yeah, just a couple of points you've raised there. I have to say, meditation's changed my life for the better. I've come an awful long way in a very short period of time. But you talked there about joy coming from meditation. I've started, as well as practicing meditation with the Buddhist Society. I started really in the last month and a half now. I've joined the Jamyang every morning for their online morning practice, which is half an hour from 8:30. I benefited it from absolutely immensely. Now, we were talking about joy here. Are we talking joy about the meditative experience, which I find has really sorted me out, because my mind used to race at 1,000,000 miles an hour through high pressure work, or grabbing every minute of the day that I could, because I was trying to cram so much in, and I've slowed down. The difference in me is just unbelievable from where I was 12 months ago. But equally, is that joy coming from the spiritual side of it a little bit? I know the word spiritual is it a controversial term in Buddhism or not? It's a funny term to use here, but am I getting the joy from? Are we getting the joy from both, or is it just everything combined together? I mean, Buddhism is about meditation. It's, when we're practicing it in mantras or just the way we go about our lives. But I'm not sure I'm getting the spiritual side of it as the joy, or the meditation of a joy, or both. And is that possible?
So if I'm to understand your question, it's really about what's the source, what's the source of this joy? What is that? Is that roughly?
Do we see the spiritual and the meditation side of it as one thing within Buddhism? I mean, there's lots of teachings as well that we learn from, about how to conduct ourselves, and I've read and learned an awful lot about dukkha, and I've spent an awful lot of time looking at the Four Noble Truths and understanding that, because I had a lot of suffering in the past, and I feel I've released that very, very quickly. I've not felt this good for 40 years. I'm 50-year-old, and I've not felt this good since I was a child, and it's something that I intend to maintain. But again, that's a strange word, because I'm trying to live every day as it goes at the moment. But I don't know if I'm getting spiritual or just purely from my meditation practice.
Well, Andy, I think I know what you're pointing to in your question. And I mean, it sort of really is what is the source of joy? What ultimately is that source? And I would just take you back to, you've expressed there in what you've just said to the group, you expressed a sense of appreciation of where you are now and your mind state. Now that is what I'm talking to. That is what Thich Nhat Hanh is pointing to. You've appreciated something, and it's that sense of gladness. That's the source of joy, isn't? Just the sense of being glad about something, that can be the source of joy. Being glad about your breath, being glad about this particular mind state, being glad about this moment. That's the source of joy.
Yeah.
So I hesitate to use the word spiritual. I don't quite know what it means. But
no,
I think when people do use it, I think I know what they're pointing to, and I would always go back to if that moment of appreciation and gladness, this breath, that's spiritual. So that's the best I can do as an answer. But
I capture positive affirmations as well. And I journal those, and every time I meditate, it goes in my book, because it just brings me so much joy and happiness, and grounds me more than anything else.
Well, there you are, Andy. I think you've answered the question yourself.
Yeah, probably.
You're entering something in a book as a record of your joy and appreciation. That's the source. So I think you've answered it yourself. So thank you. But thank you very much for that question. Yeah. Okay, everyone. More of this next week with Colin. He'll be back next week, and I think he's here till the end of term. So thank you all very much for joining this class tonight and forming this online Sangha. The Buddhist Society really appreciates your presence and your diligence and application to the practice. So I wish you all a very good week. Go well, and Colin will be here next week. So thank you all very much.